Good evening, listeners, and welcome to a very special episode of Red Moon Role-Playing. Tonight, four strangers gather round a moonlit altar, ready to delve into a realm of untold horror. The first individual who lowers his hood, Matthew Dawkins. Hello, how are you?
Well, I wouldn't call us strangers, Craig. We've played together many times, but I'm all right.
Wonderful. We are not only joined, though, by Matthew Dawkins tonight, listeners, but also another familiar voice, John Burke. Hello, John.
Hello, and there's definitely nobody stranger than me.
And finally, the one, the only, Jenny Bremberg. Hello, Jenny. How are you?
I'm fine, and a good evening to you too, Greg.
Indeed, the night is most sublime. But Matthew, what are we doing on such a dark and gloomy night?
Well, tonight we are running They Came From Beyond the Grave, which, if it isn't on Kickstarter now, will be very soon. They Came From Beyond the Grave is the next game in the They Came From line, following They Came From Beneath the Sea, and covers the horror movie genre of the Hammer horror, Amicus horror, Roger Corman library of the late 60s to mid-70s. Think Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, Ingrid Pitt, Donald Pleasance, Michael Gough, that kind of group. And the sorts of horror movies they would make with Technicolor blood, hammy acting, wooden sets, wooden acting sometimes. It's, as with They Came From Beneath the Sea, a mixture of drama and humour, although They Came From Beyond the Grave steers more into the ham than the farce of Beneath the Sea. It all originates from my great love of cinema in general, but especially the horror genre and the horror movies of this era. So, yes, we will be embarking upon a tale that befits the genre, and hopefully the three of you and the listeners will enjoy it. And maybe even consider backing the Kickstarter. Why not? Now, let's get the rules out of the way first. For all the listeners, let's briefly cover the story path system that is used for They Came From Beyond the Grave. To put it simply, it's a D10 dice pool system. You're probably very familiar with the idea, where you're rolling D10s and you're trying to get 8s and above to succeed. Sometimes difficulties are complicated, as in you gain complications that mean you have to score more successes to buy those complications off. The famed example in all of the books is, I'm trying to climb over a chain link fence. There's a complication to that, so I can still succeed at doing so, but if I don't buy off the complication with additional successes, I might lose my wallet as my pocket gets torn open on the chain link fence, that kind of thing. Likewise, you can gain enhancements that can add to your successes after you've rolled a single one. This comes from things like taking the time to aim before you shoot a werewolf, or knowing the person you're trying to persuade to give up £10 from their purse, that kind of thing. Beyond that, characters also have trademarks. These are like your specialities. These are things that help explain why your character excels at a certain skill or attribute. They will add dice to your rolls as and when they're used. Beyond that, we also have quips. Quips are They Came From aspect that you don't see in many other games. These are your one-liners, the things that make it seem like you're playing characters in a not very good movie. They are your Arnold Schwarzenegger lines like, I'll be back, but in this case it might be referring to the blood that's dripping down the walls, or I've got a bad feeling about this, or something like that. Every time you use a quip, you're going to gain dice to your rolls, but the wonderful thing is, if you use a quip more than once, and your dice roll is successful, the next time you use it, you'll gain additional dice, up to I think a maximum of 5 dice off the top of my head. So if you can use the same quip 5 times in the same game, not only is your character bloody repetitive, hopefully there's some entertainment value and you will be gaining additional dice for doing so. Final thing I want to cover, just so listeners are aware, is cinematics. Cinematics are probably the most popular part of the They Came From game line, in that they're your meta powers, the things that divide you, the player, from the character's actions. These are things that you can basically do to assume directorial control and shift the course of play. In this game, we're playing with 5 cinematics. The cinematics we have selected are Cheap Set, which is going to cost 2 rewrites. You earn rewrites through failing at dice rolls, and the group starts with 3. Cheap Set allows them to bust through a set as if it were cheap, so if they were cornered by someone with a gun, they could just run straight through the wall and escape. They have Costume Change, that costs 2 rewrites as well. Allows them to go from scene to scene and, as the name implies, completely change the way they look from scene to scene. Dramatic Meteorology is their next choice, and that's a 1-point rewrite. Dramatic Meteorology allows them to bring down lightning strikes, rolls of thunder, sudden hailstorms, that sort of thing. Can make a declaration sound more ominous. Scene Missing is the 4th cinematic that they're using. Scene Missing is a favourite of the They Came From line, in that it basically allows you to cut a scene from the game. You're about to be demolished by Dracula, the Wolfman, or the devil himself. Just insert a scene missing, and your characters will turn up somewhere else. You can never reference what was about to happen to your character. You can never reference how they escaped. All we know is the scene is missing. That costs 3 rewrites. That's a big one. Last one is Small Set. Small Set is a new one for They Came From Beyond the Grave, much like Costume Change and Dramatic Meteorology. Small Set only costs 1 rewrite, and is the opposite of Cheap Set. If you use Small Set, you basically confine everyone who is in the scene to the same room, because, for all intents and purposes, the movie studio ran out of budget to make more rooms on this set. You can't film externally. You are confined to a single room until a resolution is found to this scene. So that means if there's a fight, usually it will mean until only one side is left standing. No one can escape. Now, cinematics can be used to overwrite each other if you see fit. So someone might declare Small Set when a battle is going their way. When they realise the tides have turned against them, maybe it's time for a scene missing. But that is essentially it. Those are the mechanics, so I would like to quickly turn over to the players just to tell me the characters they are playing, and then we'll get into the plot of this story of They Came From Beyond the Grave. Let's start with you, John. Who are you playing as?
Today I will be playing Professor Reginald Fortescue, a learned man of letters who is determined to marry his obsession with the occult with the sciences and prove that all magic is in fact science.
Lovely, okay. And what about you, Jenny? Who are you playing?
I'm playing Tracy Taylor, and she's a PI with a smooth style who prefers to talk herself out of situations rather than using fisticuffs.
And maybe a valuable skill given who is coming up next, and that's our Hunter, played by Craig. Can you tell us a little about your character?
Well, tonight I'll be playing Davis Jones, a simple man of simple means, but let us say that perhaps life has not treated him well, especially things from beyond the grave. He may have met them before, for he is now a monster hunter. It runs in the family, you see. And so he very much deals with the very simple method of destroying things that aren't good. Normally with weapons or his fists. He doesn't do much thinking.
Now, I should hasten to add, They Came From Beyond the Grave is a different game to Beneath the Sea. It's not a supplement, therefore all the archetypes are different, all the quips are different, and the vast majority of the cinematics are different too, along with everything else in the book, except for the core system. So you may recognise some similarities between the Professor and the Scientist, Hunter and the Survivor, but they're all built differently. And the other archetypes that aren't in play for this session are the Mystic and the Dupe. And personally speaking, as the developer of this game, the Dupe is actually my favourite archetype, but it's not one we're rolling with tonight. So, this story of They Came From Beyond the Grave is simply called The Cult of Abaddon, which should hopefully send chills up the spines of anyone learned on such matters. Our characters are familiar with each other already. Maybe they've chased down a monster or two in their time, or solved a mystery together. They don't necessarily have to get on. They're not necessarily the best of friends. But they recognise each other's talents, and it comes from time to time, that they are enlisted to put those talents to good use. Indeed, that is the premise of our story tonight. They have been summoned to a nice, cheeky little boozer on the corner of Soho by the name of the Swan. The air is thick with tobacco smoke. It's the mid-1970s, so collars are wide and shirts are unbuttoned. There's a bit of David Bowie playing on the radio. Someone's hammering the fruit machine. People are talking about the score of Chelsea versus Arsenal. It's your typical Saturday afternoon. It won't be long before the football ground start emptying out of fans, and then there'll be the fight over who actually gets into what pub. But the Swan is known as a Millwall pub, so Chelsea and Arsenal fans both tend to avoid it. Those of you familiar with London will know this. However, you have been summoned there by a man from the Ministry. It's always a little peculiar, a little off-putting when the Ministry gets in touch. None of you are really sure what the Ministry is, or what it's the Ministry of. Is it information? Is it the Secret Service? Is it what? But you've certainly found gainful employment from them from time to time under the strictest orders of confidentiality. From time to time they've asked you to pick up a simple object from a mysterious location to find evidence of the trace of some paranormal creature, and that's indeed how you came to know each other. So as you occupy your table at the Swan, both of you, all three of you, I assume, holding your drinks, I'd actually like to ask, it's the 1970s, what would you be drinking, Professor?
I imagine the Professor's drinking something which comes in a small glass and generally looks far less uncivilised than the large pint glasses held in the meaty fingers of the general patrons of the bar. He'll be looking around at them with a sort of aloof disdain as he sips his far stronger and far more classy drink.
Oh yes, this is a time when pint glasses were ridged and round, and they came with a handle. Oh, the glorious 1970s. Nothing was going wrong there, when you could trust in the foamy top to your beer. And what about our raconteur? What would our raconteur be drinking on a Saturday afternoon?
She is, of course, sipping a glass of red wine while she's lighting the new cigarette on the last one, of course. It is the 70s. You drink wine and you smoke, of course.
Of course, wine tastes better when you smoke with it. And once you are done with the old cigarette, you can stub it out in the glorious frosted ash tray between all of your drinks. There's a roar from the bar. People are watching the game across it. There's a small TV behind. Barman, of course, isn't paying any attention to that. He's busy cleaning glasses and serving patrons. It appears that Arsenal just missed a penalty, which is typical. What about our hunter? What's our hunter drinking? And does he care much for football?
I'm paying a little bit of attention to the football as I sip my pint, naturally from, as you said, a classic old handled mug.
Well, that'll be a pint of whatever is on tap. Probably something relatively British. A man in a suit rolls in with a briefcase. He can only be your contact. There's so many stories, so many movies that you've read or seen where this kind of exchange happens. It's almost something from John le Carré. He sees the three of you, cuts through the people in their blue football jerseys. Must be a gang of Chelsea fans. And he sits down opposite you.
Does our contact have any name?
Yes, you've been told that his name will be Mr. York.
Is there a code phrase that we have to say to him?
No, Sadly not. It's not that John le Carré. Unless you want there to be. Unless you want this to be a good use for your quip.
The eagle flies at midnight. No, I don't get my quips would really apply here, I'm afraid.
He sits down. I won't be stopping to drink. I don't believe we've met. There's another roar from the bar. I'm going to keep this brief. Do any of the three of you know a man by the name of Gregory Wilson?
The professor sort of looks down at his drink, doesn't say anything for the moment, and he just takes a sip out of it and waits to see if the other two say anything.
I furrow my brow, which is quite bushy. I have very thick eyebrows. I'm quite a large man, bald-headed, thick-bearded. And I just sort of say, nay.
I've known many Gregs, but not sure any of them were named Wilson.
Presumably our contact here is referring to the son of the current Prime Minister.
Oh, no, I don't know that one.
Well, that is indeed correct. There is only one... There is only one Gregory Wilson, as they might chant at the bar. And sadly, he's gone missing. The PM is distraught, of course, as anyone would be if they've lost their son. And while Gregory stays out of the press, unlike his other son, the mathematician, he is, of course, concerned. So far, the press haven't caught wind of it, of course. We need to keep things hush-hush. But the three of you, well, I thought you would be the right people to go on the job. Too many holes in the ministry, you understand. Sometimes you need to find an external contractor. That's why we've come to you. And I can promise you that the money will remain good if the three of you remain discreet. Of course, you may be wondering why I would approach the three of you. After all, you're not just people finders. Why not just go to the police if we thought something was wrong? Are you wondering that?
I expect, with it having been the Prime Minister's son, that you've already had the police looking for him.
Oh, no. Certainly not. Certainly not. This is not something that we want the general public to be aware of, and as I said, not just the Ministry, but the Metropolitan Police. Far too many holes, dear boy.
So by implication you already know where he is and who has him?
By implication, yes. We believe that Gregory Wilson was fraternizing with some ne'er-do-wells who were dabbling in matters occult.
Mm-hmm. And that is why you seek our help, I take it?
That's correct. We don't know what kind of power these people swing. They may be Freemasons for all we know. But what is important is, as they dabble in the occult, Gregory Wilson may do as well, and suffice to say, everyone needs to keep mum, hush, try and get the boy back, and hopefully his father can give him a clip around the ear and a firm talking to, and things will be right as rain come the morning.
I crack my knuckles a little as I say, if people get in the way, sir, what are we allowed to do to them?
Oh, whatever is needed to protect the Prime Minister's son. We employ you for your discretion. We don't expect a massacre in the street, of course, or the next Great Fire of London, but so long as the young man is recovered, then you are within your rights to use whatever force is deemed necessary.
Aye. Be subtle. I understand, sir.
Subtlety would be of preeminent. However, I would suggest that if there is any resistance between you and he, that you may need to cleave through it. We do not want anything bad shining upon Mr. Wilson, the Prime Minister. There's already various stories in the press that reflect badly on him, and if it turns out that the son or one of these dreadful rags gets wind of his son running off with some group of Rosicrucians, well, you can imagine the kind of stink that would be.
Aye, sir, I can.
So I take it if we manage to locate this Gregory, the Prime Minister will be very pleased.
I should assume so. He'll be angry, of course, and Gregory is He is no doubt already furious that Gregory's gone missing, but I imagine concern is the larger part of his psyche right now, and yes, gratitude, I imagine, will follow. Allow him to deal with his son first before he deals with you. I can't imagine you're going to be meeting with Mr. Wilson personally. After all, it wouldn't do for the Prime Minister to know the kind of people we're hiring. No offence.
Where, sir, do you want us looking first?
I've got a few files for you, and he opens his briefcase. There's his thermos in there. He's got a packed lunch. He moves them out the way. It's, again, very spy movie. He slips out a file. We've made brief little gazettes on the places he's most likely to be. He was studying at the University of London, chemistry student. Apparently had plenty of friends there. He puts that file down in front of the professor. He had a young lady friend, we believe. They stayed with each other in halls of residence. We haven't been able to track her, though, and we have a file on her here by the name of Marion Jackson. And finally, he, through his family, is a member of the Colonial Club in Mayfair. And, well, he's no doubt got friends there as well. Don't know when he last checked in, but discreet word on the street is he's been missing for at least 3 days, and as far as the Prime Minister's concerned, that's cause to worry. Gregory has always been a good boy, checked in when needed.
Oh yeah, that was gonna be my next question. This has happened before, but I take it hasn't then.
Well, we've always had our doubts about Gregory. You understand the Ministry keeps an eye on the Prime Minister's family, has to really, in case any of them decide to go red. But not that that's ever happened before, of course, and especially not to Harold Wilson. But one does have to be careful, and we've had our suspicions that Gregory has been fraternizing with some awful elements, and while we fed that up the chain to the PM, it didn't appear to have landed, and certainly he was keeping a brave face on things. Gregory was checking in when he was supposed to, but one thing you have to understand, he leans in. Oh, that's a nice drink, he says, looking at the professors. One thing you have to understand, there's a security detail on each of the Prime Minister's sons. It's important, one must do it. You never know when some foreign element might want to strike a blow for the motherland. We are very effective, very diligent, and somehow Gregory slipped right by us. He was in his halls of residence one day, didn't come out the next. We, of course, entered his accommodation. There was no sign of a struggle, no sign of where he'd been or where he was due to go, but he was there one day, gone by the next morning. It isn't beyond anyone, of course, to have slipped out of a bathroom window or something similar, but again, we feel we might have noticed if it was just mundane means that saw him spirited away.
Yes, it is incredible what they can do nowadays.
Indeed. Anyway, I must dash. I wouldn't want to get caught in the flood of Arsenal and Chelsea fans. I'm not much of a goon myself, he says, looking for some kind of affirmation there.
The professor sort of just lets that fly over his head.
I smile meekly.
I'm already looking at the documents we've been given very intently, seeming quite satisfied that we have been given all we need from this man.
You have my telephone number. Use a public call box, of course, when it comes time to call me, and keep things brief, and we will arrange to meet up and hand over the boy. I'm sure everything will go swimmingly. He stands up, after doing his briefcase up, clasps clicking together.
Well, Mr. York, it's a pleasure working with you, or for you, I would say. Don't worry, we'll have him safely back home soon.
Oh, I'm sure his mother will be worried, but I appreciate it, the Prime Minister will appreciate it, and we we won't forget your service.
As he departs, I finish my pint and look towards Taylor. Well, ma'am, where do you think we should be going first?
I draw a hand through my luscious locks of perm, of course, and take a deep drag on my cigarette. I do believe that this girlfriend of his might be a good place to start.
Aye. Could be good to go and speak to the girlfriend first. I agree. Professor, what say you, sir?
Well, both the girl and the university friends are very likely accommodated in the same area, so we may, as they say, kill two birds with one stone.
Settled then. Let's go to this university and see what's what.
Yes, it would be best if we get moving before he looks at the crowd of people at the bar. Football traffic comes wandering through the streets.
Don't worry, Professor. If you get in trouble, I will intercede.
He just sort of lets out a noise that could be a laugh or a cough, and you're not sure which.
I just smile and nod. You'd know by now that I'm being very earnest when I say that if anyone comes near you, I will intercede.
You exit the pub and take a black cab over to the University of London in that case, and their halls of residence are pretty nearby. They're not actually on the site itself. Are all of you heading to the halls, or are you splitting up from here?
Is there some kind of common area or something where they meet?
Yeah, there are gardens and there's a refectory.
I would stick with one of the others, but if one of them wants to split off, I would understand.
What do you say, Professor? Would it be more time efficient if we split up, or is it better we stay together to make sure no one misses any details?
The professor sort of looks at the group. He imagines that Tracy could probably pass, perhaps for a student, or at least someone who students want to talk to, whereas he would appear more like a member of the faculty, and someone who students don't want to talk to. So he's going to offer this piece of advice or leadership. He will say, I think I shall go and see if I can locate the girlfriend of the man, using perhaps some friends I can find within the university. I may be able to uncover where she is domiciled. I would recommend that you, Tracy, make your way into the common areas and begin to work your particular brand of magic on the students there, see if there are any rumours flying around, any strange societies, any posters, perhaps, anything that people are talking about that may have attracted Mr. Wilson's interest.
A broad smile widens and Tracy's lips, and she almost looks a bit, giddy, and starts walking towards the common areas, looking at Davis to see which one of them he will follow.
Well, sir, would you be wanting me to stick with you, or go with Miss Taylor?
It's probably best if you accompany... He's caught in two minds for a moment, and you see him sort of glancing at her as she sort of is already manoeuvring away quite happily, and pondering his own situation and how members of the faculty here might feel if he turns up with Davis. But eventually he resolves himself, thinking that if there is something dodgy going on at this establishment, the faculty could be in on it, and he might need Davis to protect him. You will come with me, Mr. Jones. I think that would be best. Let Miss Taylor take her time and do her work.
Aye, sir. Always a pleasure. And I will accompany the professor. As I do so, I take out one of my Marlboro cigarettes and begin smoking.
Okay, the two of you make your way. Are you looking to head straight to halls of residence?
Yeah, my plan is effectively to use my sort of academic, I don't know, persona, I suppose,
Mm-hmm.
a niche fame, to see if I can get these people to tell me where it is that this guy was living, and if his girlfriend was. I imagine it's an all-male dorm back in those days.
Yep.
So if he's there, where would the lady be that they're looking for? So basically, just to get where he was, because he'd quite like to have a look at this room and see if the man himself had any effects or anything that might give them clues as to where he might have gone or who he might have been in contact with, and then go and locate the lady herself for a chat.
Well, there's a foyer where you can try and work your magic. There's also a faculty room. There's all the laboratories and everything. We know he's studied chemistry, so there must be at least a couple of labs with teachers in or around them. Bear in mind it is a Saturday, so anyone studying on this day is doing it as an extracurricular. But as you're in the middle of term season, most people aren't going to be going away from the city.
Is there a registry?
There's a registrar. There's no publicly accessible registry with students' names upon it.
Oh no, I meant like an office where I can speak to someone.
Yes, of course.
So I will head there, I think, in the first instance.
Okay, you head over there with Davis in tow, and there's a natty-looking woman, thick glasses, curled hair, at the desk, playing with a pencil, chewing it between her teeth, studying something just out of sight. Looks like quite intently. You can see a bead of sweat forming on her forehead.
The professor will sort of mosey over to where she's seated, and he'll politely sort of stand there, and if after a while she hasn't kind of noticed him, he'll let out a very polite kind of
It's the 4 down.
Perhaps I can maybe have some assistance, my dear.
She blinks rapidly and sees the two of you there. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Telegraph, crossword. Dreadful at these things, but trying to impress the boyfriend.
No.
He likes them, you see. I've committed to one day getting home and having the crossword already filled out before he can get to it.
The professor sort of like glances over, and I'll see if I can get a look at the clue for 4 down, and if there's any letters already in it to help me, perhaps.
Well, rather than improvising a crossword, let's go for enigmas and intellect. The clue is before it is a record, and you have an O as the 4th letter.
He will roll some dice. 6 dice for this for me.
If you have a guess, I can give you some enhancements.
Before it is a record. It's an attempt before it's a record, I don't know. Yes, that's not correct, is it?
Okay, so if you've not got an idea, we'll just go for enigmas and intellect, please.
So a 4, an 8, a 10, a 1, an 8 and a 9. That's technically 4 successes.
Yes, and 10s count as 2 successes too.
So 5 successes then.
Wow, well, you get it immediately. It's clearly demo, and you can get it nice and simply as well, because you've already worked out what the answer to the next one that intersects the word demo would be. You're that damn good at crosswords. And you filled in this telegraph one this morning.
Of course, I do it with my cornflakes every day. He will sort of like smile with his high cheekbones, sort of presenting his face with a very kindly kind of aspect, and he'll sort of beam down at her. Perhaps I could offer you some assistance.
Please. Just can't get it. I keep thinking attempt, but I don't think it's that kind of record.
So yeah, the professor will kind of smile inwardly at his superior intellect. Well, perhaps that is not the sort of record they are referring to. Perhaps it is one of those musical records.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm still not getting it, though.
I have heard them refer to recordings made by artists that are not for public release that they send in, known as demo records. Perhaps that could be the word.
Demo, of course.
And, yes, crossing along from it here, you will see Meticulous is 7 across there.
Meticulous. I wouldn't have even thought Meticulous had 7 letters in. Anyway, how is it that I can help you? You have engendered this secretary to you, and any attempt to persuade or command her is going to come with enhancements.
That's what I was hoping for. He'll say, well, we are currently seeking the domicile of a student who was seeking extra assistance with his chemistry degree. A lad by the name of Gregory Wilson. Would you happen to know where he's domiciled?
Okay, so yes, if you could do a command and manipulation, please. But yes, if you want to actually say, I have a degree, you can add...
He'll say, I am a member of the faculty after all, I have a degree. Because he never shouts things, this guy. Mm-hmm. He's Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
You know? So, okay. That is 5 dice for me. Do I get additional dice?
For telling her that you have a degree, I think that's fair, yes.
And there are 2 8s, 2 successes.
Okay, that's not bad. And yes, you already had the trademark as well. So you add an additional 2 dice, in fact, for trademark. So by all means, you can add another one. You can only invoke a trademark once per story.
I'm afraid that's a 2, so it adds absolutely nothing. The fact that I have a degree clearly does not impress this young lady.
Well, you do persuade her. And she, of course, sorry, as she puts the newspaper to the side, looks down the register, which is, of course, on paper, and flips through Wilson. Yes, of course. So he lives in Brunel Block, and points you in the right direction. Gives you the number.
I had been told he may be found at the dormitory of a lady friend of his. I cannot recall her name. He'll turn round to Mr. Jones, kind of snapping his finger, searching for the name.
I believe, sir, it was Marion Jackson.
Ah, of course, Miss Jackson.
Oh, yes, of course. As you succeeded so well. She traces through. And Marion Jackson, you'd actually find her a couple of streets away. She would be in Faraday Block.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. He'll sort of glance at the crossword again and give her another answer. This would be nice.
Oh, she's quite charmed by you.
I believe this one is Swan.
Oh, like the pub.
Having just come from there.
As the professor makes to leave, I will open the door for him, and then, when he steps through, close it for him as well.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
While that was happening, by the way, I've been eyeing everyone and everything. The professor often says I'm paranoid, but I don't believe it's harmful to be prepared. Especially as we're leaving and walking now on the grounds, I'm just keeping an eye out for anything that looks a little out of place. If there is anything, maybe there isn't.
Oh, I know it's perfectly wise to do that. Could you go for an empathy and cunning roll, please, Davis?
One 8 and 1 5.
Okay, that would be enough to notice anything glaringly odd, and you don't see anything of the like. It's just students milling about, talking about the latest bands or the shows they're going to see, or how that teacher is a cretin, or this one's being too tough on us, that kind of thing.
Still doesn't put me at ease, and I light a second cigarette, just smoking casually behind the professor as we move on.
Okay, well, we're going to cut over to Tracy now. Tracy, you were going to go and fraternise with the student body, if I recall.
Yes, trying to turn on my most charming smile and see if I can find well, someone hanging about that I could talk to.
Well, there's plenty of students. You can you approach a couple of young men. One of them sitting on the steps with a guitar. Another one is smoking something a little dubious. As you approach, he stubs out his jazz cigarette.
What time is it? Is it evening or is it just...
It's about 5 p.m. now. The game has ended.
Afternoon, boys.
Yeah, afternoon. How are you doing?
Actually, I'm a bit bored, but maybe you can help me out?
Do you want to listen to me play?
Yeah. Well,
He's really good.
as long as you know any Bowie.
Yeah. Have you picked up his latest record?
Have I? I have them all.
What? All of them? Even the albums too?
Yeah, and I've got actually some kind of bootleg, a friend recorded from a friend. He slipped a recording device into one of his concert thingies, and it's awesome.
No way.
Oh, sorry, it's 70s. It's rad.
Yeah, which album is it?
Oh, okay, guys, you gotta help me out. Jenny doesn't know all of them.
No, and that's absolutely fine. You can essentially try and persuade them at this point. If you don't know any, that's absolutely fine. I would recommend going for persuasion and presence, because really you're just trying to bluff them.
Yeah.
You're trying to make it sound like it could be by Bowie, even though Tracy isn't a Bowie fan herself.
Well, she listens to music, of course, but she's more into a bit more classic. But she do enjoy some David Bowie from time to time, of course. And let's see. So that's persuasion, I've got 4, and then presence, I've got 3, so that's 7, right?
Yep.
And it's 8 and up.
Yep, and if you have any trademarks linked to persuasion and presence and you want to use them now, that's another 2 dice.
Empathy and enigmas and persuasion. Yeah, persuasion. Why fight when we can love? No, not really any.
Not appropriate
No.
for this one, maybe.
But I do have 1, 2, 3 10s.
Wow, so 6 successes.
And the rest is a 5, 1, 7, and a 2.
Okay, in that case you can make up a name of an album and it will sound believable.
I have listened to David Bowie before, but can't really... let me just check. How about... No, well, actually, she knows. It's Aladdin Sane.
Wow! You've got Aladdin Sane bootleg.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, alright, well, screw Tom and his guitar, let's just talk about that.
Of course. And I make up this, totally credible, but a little bogus story about my friend going there and actually getting backstage and, spending time with David Bowie and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know someone who got to do that at Pink Floyd once. It was mental.
Yeah, so I haven't seen you guys here before. That's not that... I'm kind of new, so...
Oh, sure, what are you studying?
What do you study in the 70s? You study like... Is it like psychology? Yeah.
Yeah, you could study psychology in the 1970s, definitely.
So I'm a psychology student.
Oh, well, we don't study psychology, but that really sounds deep and interesting.
Yeah, it's always so... It's really enriching to be able to probe into someone's mind and see how they work.
Yeah, wow, I bet it's scary, though.
It might be from time to time.
You must hear some real crazy shit sometimes.
Well, to be honest, it's mostly just people with Oedipus complex and a bad childhood. So, but sooner or later, I think I will probably find a pretty interesting case.
You're pretty cool. What did you say your name was?
Oh, it's Tracy.
Yeah, cool. This is Tom. My name's Simon.
Hi. So what you're studying here?
Tom's studying, which of the sciences is it? I'm studying chemistry. Yeah, he's studying chemistry. I'm a mathematics student. It's dull as dishwater, though. You know what Pythagoras can do with his theorem.
Well, at least you're smart then.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, though. It's just my parents paid for it, and I guess I become a maths teacher. What else can you do with a maths degree?
No. I hear they use a lot of math in programming and stuff. Maybe that's for you.
Nah, I don't think those computers. No, I've seen them. They're ridiculous things.
So you're chemistry. Do you know what? I've heard this rumor, and maybe you can help me out.
Yeah. What's that? Tom is now pleased because you're not speaking to Simon anymore. He picks his guitar back up.
So I heard the rumor that. Do you know if there's Gregory Wilson going here?
Yeah, Greg. I know him.
Yeah, and you know whose son he is, right?
Well, yeah, he's the PM's son, isn't he? We don't try not to hold that against him.
Yeah. I've heard he. So is he? I mean, it's the PM's son. You guys know him?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he's the son of a celebrity. It's just the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I know, but it's still. I mean, I've never really known anyone famous at all. I mean, he's not famous, but his father's famous.
Yeah, well, I don't know if getting to know Greg is a good way to get to know his dad. I've never seen old Harold Wilson around the university grounds. I imagine Oxford and Cambridge are more his kind of thing, or down a mine somewhere. You know how he always is on about working classes, working the land and all that. All I know is my parents keep complaining about how he keeps putting the taxes up.
Yeah, might raise some bad blood about amongst people, maybe. I don't know.
Are you wanting to meet Greg then, or something?
If it's not too much of a hassle, it would just be, my father is a big fan. Don't hold that against me.
Oh, I don't care. I don't get involved in politics. They could all go hang as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, neither do I. But my father's quite a fan of the PM, and it would be kind of nice to be able to tell him that I met his son here.
Look, I've got nothing against it. If I can buy you a drink later. Tom? No. Look, I got to ask first. I'll introduce you to Greg if I can get you a drink tonight.
Well,
I know an excellent boozer.
Well,
it's nice and quiet.
How about this? You buy me a drink and then I can buy you a drink. I mean, women's right and everything.
No, he puts his hands up. I'm sorry. Ah, look at you, you chauvinist pig. Simon's mocking him now. Okay, what is it they say? We'll go Dutch. We'll each buy ourselves drinks, maybe share some jelly deals down by the Thames. See where the night takes us. Alright, I'm leaving. Simon gets up. You two lovebirds go and chat politics with Greg. You know where I'll be later, Tom. Yeah. So, once you're alone with Tom and his guitar. So, you want to get, Greg's autograph? And that's going to impress your dad?
As I said, I'm not really into politics, but my father is a diehard fan of the Prime Minister, and I just want to, casually, let that slip by next Sunday dinner, Oh, by the way, I did meet the PM's son.
He interrupts you. He puts his hand up quite rudely, but points over to someone running across the gardens, running through the flower beds, in fact. Says, that's Greg's girlfriend, actually. Don't know what she's running like. Maybe she knows where he is. Marion, I've got someone who wants to meet Greg here. And you can see her, she looks in a panic. She's terrified. I wonder what's wrong with her.
Oh, she looks distraught.
Yeah, there's several students standing around now, most of them standing back, wondering what's going on. Is she on something? Is she on a bad trip? Is she being chased? No one can see a pursuer or anything like that. She trips over, climbs back up, she's got mud on her knees, on her dress, turns around again, and then she just collapses. Boom! To the ground, flat. Christ! Okay. And Tom runs over to her.
I follow him, of course, and try to get on my knees to see to her, make sure she's all right.
She's on her back. She's already going blue. Oh, I don't know anything about biology or medicine. I studied chemistry. What is it supposed to do? Can you make a medicine and intellect roll, please?
I don't have
You're not necessarily good at this.
No, I do.
But if you can use a quip at this point, it could be appropriate, it could be entertaining.
This person is dead. I don't think so.
You could definitely say that, and it will steer the direction of the game. If you want to just announce this person is dead.
Oh my god.
Embrace the nature of the game.
Okay, I'm embracing this. I look at her and I look at everyone. I'm kind of trying to make everyone stand back because she needs air, I say. And then when I look back at her, I just see these staring, kind of empty eyes. And I yell, "Oh my god, this person is dead!"
Yeah, and that is a perfect use of a quip. Because quips aren't always appropriate. Sometimes they are just entertaining. So what that means, you will gain another die now that you decide to roll your medicine and intellect. And if you do get a success, you can then use that quip again later, and you will gain 2 additional dice.
Awesome, 3 dice. And I get an 8 and a 10.
So that's 3 successes. I mean, your diagnosis wasn't wrong. You think she is dead, but you are also fairly confident you know the cause. You didn't see it initially, but now you can see some very brightly, almost tropical coloured feathers protruding from just behind her shoulder. And you feel compelled to move the body slightly.
I try to... Can I use, dexterity larceny to pocket that before anyone else sees it?
You can, but I'm going to give you a complication, because there are lots of people watching. So you can pocket it, but Tom might see you if you don't get more than 1 success. So it's larceny and dexterity, please. Good combination there.
And I have 1/8 just.
Ooh, okay, 1/8. That means you can pocket it, but Tom sees you. No one else does, but Tom does. He says, what are you doing?
I kind of look at him and try to do give him a meaning look.
He's not buying that. He stands up. You better tell me what's going on. I've never seen you before. You want to see Greg because of who his dad is. Now his girlfriend drops down dead and you're stealing evidence by the look of it. So tell me what's going on before I go and tell the faculty.
I stand up and I put my hand on his arm and I kind of draw him back a couple of steps from everyone else. I'm sorry, Tom. I'm a PI and I know what I'm doing.
You're going to have to use persuasion and manipulation, I think, to get through to him. There is a complication. You're going to need to get more than 1 success because, yeah, he's just seen you interfere with a crime scene, potentially. However, you may use a trademark and keep an eye on those quips. There may be a quip you want to use.
I think I'm going to say, you know what, Tom? This might just be another move in a deadly game of cat and mouse.
Oh, good quip.
There's 2 10s and a 1/8.
Okay, that's plenty of successes, and that means you get to use Deadly Game of Cat and Mouse again at a future point and gain 2 dice for doing so. He bites his lip, he nods, says, I'm going to trust you, Tracy. I'm going to keep... I'll keep this to myself, okay?
Thank you.
I'm going to go and I'm going to take a walk. You can see now, you can hear the sirens approaching now. So once you get a little way from the maddening crowd, we're able to see that what you extracted and pocketed is a very exotic-looking dart. The kind of dart that might be blown from a blowgun.
I make special care not to touch the tip in any way. And then I go and look for the professor and Davis.
You have listened to an episode of Red Moon Roleplaying, where we played They Came From Beyond the Grave. This is a sponsored adventure by our friends at Onyx Path Publishing. Look out for They Came From Beyond the Grave on Kickstarter. Gamemaster was the gentleman gamer Matthew Dawkins, and we were joined by Jenny Bremberg and John Burke. The music was from the Cthulhu Cryochamber collaborations. Visit cryochamber.bandcamp.com or their YouTube channel for more dark ambient. We would like to give massive thanks to our champions of the Red Moon, Martin Heuschober, Nastasia Raulerson, Simon Cooper, David, and Julia, for their generous support. And we would of course like to thank all of our other patrons. Without your support, the show would not be possible. If you want to support our work, please check us out on Patreon. You can get access to bonus campaigns for Cult of Indy Lost and Coriolis there, as well as get early and raw access to all of our recordings. You can also hear your name read on the show as a champion of the Red Moon, as well as play Cult with us. Most importantly, that support is what keeps the show going, so do check us out there. Thank you for listening, and see you soon again.